By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. My first encounter with Maundy Thursday took place at a tiny Lutheran church in South Carolina. Having grown up Baptist, we never paid much attention to church holidays apart from Christmas and Easter. I was familiar with Palm Sunday and Good Friday, but I had never heard of this other oddly named day during Holy Week. I don't remember if that congregation did foot washing. Probably not, as that would likely have stood out in my mind as something totally new. But I did fall in love with the celebration itself. Coming from my separatist background, setting aside an entire day to focus on Christ's command to love one another, to embrace this singular mission of unity and peace, was strange and beautiful. More than 2 decades later, that first encounter still colors my love for Maundy Thursday, the name of which comes from a contracted version of the Latin word for command. Unfortunately, I feel like we in the Episcopal Church often try to scoot past the Maundy aspect so we can get all moody and solemn for Good Friday. But this is a special day in its own right. And tonight, I'd like to allow our thoughts to linger on the wonder of this celebration, on the joy and simplicity of Jesus' new commandment. Of course, first, we need to recognize what kind of love Jesus is even asking of us. The word he uses in our text is agape, a relatively uncommon term outside the New Testament. Agape appears to be the verb form of the word agathos, which means good or useful. The idea of agape, then, is essentially an embodied or incarnate form of goodness. It's usefulness, kindness, helpfulness, respect, self-giving, put into action. Jesus never tells anybody they have to be friends with their enemies. That's a different word entirely. And that's good, because the love associated with friendship is something that can only happen naturally as people get to know one another. But with agape, there is a choice. And that's the kind of love Jesus demands of his followers. You don't have to like one another. You don't have to agree with one another. But no matter the situation, you can choose to operate under and with this sort of love. The truth is, even within the church, we may not always like each other. But for the sake of Jesus, we as a family choose to do good and to help one another, to adapt to changes as necessary, and to seek out the good of the whole, not simply our own individual preferences. We let go of the hierarchy of power, of self-seeking and self-promotion that society beats into our minds from childhood. Instead, we choose to set aside our individual differences and desires. As we talked about on Sunday, we unite ourselves in following Jesus by taking on the form of a servant, so that we can act and move forward spreading the good news of God's same agape love as one body. We as the church ought not run under practices or illusions of top-down authority. We shouldn't try to force others to comply with our desires or interfere with others who are attempting to serve the people to whom God has called them. We need to learn to embrace the hierarchy of service that Jesus so clearly demonstrated in the foot washing we read about. Even giving one last chance to Judas, despite realizing he had been plotting against him. Only as we give ourselves in the form of a servant, only as we compromise our desires and even set them aside for the good of those around us, only then can we live, can we truly love, as Jesus so plainly and simply commands us. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples. If you have love for, if you're helpful, if you literally and practically incarnate goodness toward one another. Amen.